Yesterday, we read about right view, and then we explore about the domain of wisdom, the areas to be explored and penetrated by insight, which is covered under 5 aggregates, 6 sense bases, the elements, dependent origination, and 4 noble truths. Today, we are going to explore the 5 aggregates. Chapter 9, Section 4.1, the 5 aggregates. The 5 aggregates Panchakanda are the main categories that Nikayas use to analyze human experience. The 5 are, first, form, rupa, the physical component of experience. Second, feeling, vedana, the affective tone of experience, either pleasant, painful, or neutral. The third, perception, sanya, identification of things through the distinctive marks and features. The fourth, volitional formation, sankhara, a term for the multifarious mental factors involving volition, choice, and intention. And the fifth, and the last, consciousness, vijnana, cognition arising through any of the 6 sense faculties: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Okay, so let's highlight all these 5. Form, the first one. Second is feeling. And then perception. Volitional formation. And the last one, consciousness. Okay, Sister Chai Kwan, would you like to continue?
Examination of the 5 aggregates, the topic of the Kanda Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 22, is critical to the Buddha's teaching for at least 4 reasons. First, the 5 aggregates are the ultimate reference of the first noble truth, the noble truth of suffering. See the exposition of the first truth in text 2, section 5. And since all 4 truths involve around suffering, understanding the aggregates is essential for understanding the 4 noble truths as a whole. Second, the 5 aggregates are the objective domain of clinging, and as such, contribute to the causal origination of future suffering. Third, clinging to the 5 aggregates must be removed to attain liberation. And fourth, the kind of wisdom needed to remove clinging is precisely clear insight into the true nature of the aggregates. The Buddha himself declares that so long as he did not understand the 5 aggregates in terms of their individual nature, arising, cessation, and the way to their cessation, he thus did not claim to have attained perfect enlightenment. The full understanding of the 5 aggregates is a task he likewise enjoins on his disciples. The 5 aggregates, he says, are the things that must be fully understood. Their full understanding brings the destruction of greed, hatred, and delusion. Samyutta Nikaya 22 and 23.
Thanks, Sister Chai Kwan. Okay. This paragraph explores why is it important to learn about the 5 aggregates. Why is it important to examine the 5 aggregates? So here Bhikkhu Bodhi mentioned not 4 reasons, but at least 4 reasons. Yeah. So let me highlight this. At least 4 reasons. This is the first, because the noble truth, first noble truth, the five aggregates is the ultimate reference. Like, and second, five aggregates are objective domain of clinging. Whatever we cling to is in the five aggregates. And third, clinging has to be removed to attain nibbana, to attain liberation. And lastly, the wisdom needed to remove clinging is clear insight, precisely clear insight into the true nature of the aggregates. And the full understanding of the five aggregates is the task that the Buddha enjoins on his disciples. Sister Saike, would you like to continue?
The word kanda in Sanskrit skanda means, among other things, a heap or mass, rasi. The five aggregates are so called because they each unite under one label a multiplicity of phenomena that share the same defining characteristic. Thus, whatever form there is, past, future, or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, is incorporated into the form aggregate. Whatever feeling there is, past, future, or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, is incorporated into the feeling aggregate. And so, for each of the other aggregates, text 9, section 4.1a enumerates in simple terms the constituents of each aggregate and shows that each aggregate arises and ceases in correlation with its own specific condition. The Noble Eightfold Path is the way to bring each aggregate to an end. Here we find the four truth pattern applied to the five aggregates, an application that follows quite logically from the role that the five aggregates play in representing the first noble truth.
Okay. Thanks, Sister Saike. Okay, here, this paragraph explains the word kanda, which means, in this context, a heap or mass. And it is defined this way because each of the aggregate unite under one label of multiplicity of phenomena that share the same defining characteristics. This is the description in the sutta. Past, future, or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near. In the text later, we will see what are the components, what are the constituents of each aggregate, and how each aggregate arises and ceases in correlation with its condition. And we are, of course, always back again to the Noble Eightfold Path to bring the aggregate to an end. And then here, we also revisited the four truth pattern. Sister Aikin, would you like to continue?
This sutta makes a distinction between trainees and arahants, similar to that made by the Discourse on Right View. Trainees have directly known the five aggregates by way of the four truth patterns and are practicing for their fading away and cessation. They have thereby gained a foothold, gandanti, in this dharma and discipline. Arahants too have directly known the five aggregates by way of the four truth patterns, but they have gone further than the trainees. They have extirpated all attachments to the aggregates and are liberated by non-clinging. Thus, they are called consummates one, Hivalino, who cannot be described by way of the round of rebirth.
Okay, thanks. Okay, this paragraph makes the distinction again, and pointed out the sutta makes a distinction between the trainees and the arahants. So the trainees here are still practicing for the fading away and the cessation of the 5 aggregates. Here they have gained the foothold in the Dharma and discipline. But arahants too have directly known the 5 aggregates. So what is the difference? Here, Vikubali mentioned they have gone further than the trainees. How far? They have extinguished, extirpated all attachment to the aggregates and are liberated by non-clinging. So the trainees are still practicing, but the arahants have gone all the way to the end. Sister Billy, would you like to continue?
A detailed catechism on the aggregates, treating them from diverse angles, can be found in text 9, section 4, 1b. Because the 5 aggregates that make up our ordinary experience are the object domain of clinging, upadana, they are commonly called the 5 aggregates subject to clinging. Upadana kanda. Clinging to the 5 aggregates occurs in 2 principal modes, which we might call appropriation and identification. One either grasps them and takes possession of them, that is, one appropriates them, or one uses them as the basis for views about one's self or for conceit. Bracket, I'm better than as soon as inferior to others. That is, one identifies with them. As the Nikayas put it, we are prone to think of the aggregates thus: this is mine, this I am, this is myself. Etang mama eso hang asmi, eso me ata. In this phrase, the notion, this is mine, represents the act of appropriation, a function of craving, tangha. The notion, this I am, and this is myself, represent 2 types of identification. The former, this I am, expressing conceit, mana. The later, this is myself, views ditthi.
Okay, thanks, Sister Billy. Footnotes number 3. This correlation is commonly made in the commentaries when they comment on this formula. Talking about this sentence. This I am and this is myself. The first one, this I am, representing conceit, and this is myself, representing views. Here, here this is an important distinction. The 5 aggregates subject to clinging. This is the problem with the 5 aggregates. Not just about having 5 aggregates. If you recall the 5 aggregates in the first Noble Truth, it says the 5 aggregates subject to clinging is suffering. Why? Not just the 5 aggregates. Why? Because the arahants also have the 5 aggregates, but they have removed the clinging. We all also have the 5 aggregates, but we all cling to the 5 aggregates. That's why we still suffer, while the arahants have been liberated. Here, Bhikkhu Bodhi breaks down clinging into two principal modes, he says. Firstly, the appropriation, and secondly, the identification. So, for example, it's easier to use external object. For example, we buy a phone, we start to appropriate the phone. We grasp and we take possession of the phone. This is called one appropriates them. And then when we use them, this phone is part of myself for conceit. My phone is better than yours. And then I start to identify with this phone. And that is how we cling to an object, to a form. In this case, externally. Okay. Brother Waken, would you like to continue?
The 5 aggregates based on Samyutta Nikaya 22, verses 56 to 57 and 2295.
Should we read the table? Maybe we can read the table. Is it too small?
I can read it.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. The aggregate of form, 4 great elements and form derived from them. The condition is nutriment, and the simile is a lump of foam. The aggregate of feeling has the content of the 6 classes of feeling born of contact through the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Based on the condition of contact, and the simile used is a water bubble. The aggregate of perception has the content of 6 classes of perception of forms, sounds, smells, tastes, tactile objects, and mental phenomena. The condition is contact, and the simile is a mirage. The aggregate of volitional formations has the content of 6 classes of volition regarding forms, sounds, smells, tastes, tactile objects, and mental phenomena. The condition is contact. The simile is a banana tree trunk. And the aggregate of consciousness has the content of the 6 classes of consciousness: eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. The condition is nama rupa, name and form, and the simile is a magical illusion.
Okay. Oh, actually, I can zoom in. I said zoom in. Anyway, maybe you can read one more paragraph, Brother Waken.
Giving up craving is so difficult because craving is reinforced by views, which rationalize our identification with the aggregates and thus equip craving with a protective shield. The type of view that lies at the bottom of all affirmation of selfhood is called identity view, Sakkaya Ditthi. The suttas often mention 20 types of identity view, obtained by considering one's self to stand in any of 4 relations to each of the 5 aggregates, either as identical with it, as possessing it, as containing it, or as contained within it. The uninstructed worldling holds some kind of identity view. The instructed noble disciple, having seen with wisdom the selfless nature of the aggregates, no longer regards the aggregates as a self or the belongings of a self. Adopting any of these views is a cause of anxiety and distress. It is also a leash that keeps us bound to the round of rebirths. See above text 123 and text 145.
Okay. Thanks, Brother Waken. Firstly, this table provides a nice summary of what's to come. Bhikkhu Bodhi will explain all of this in a greater depth later on. And here, this paragraph talks about why giving up craving is so difficult. It's because of views, which rationalize our identification with the aggregates and equip craving with some kind of shield, a protective shield. Okay, Sister Shomi, would you like to continue?
All the defilements ultimately stem from ignorance, which thus lies at the bottom of all suffering and bondage. Ignorance weaves a net of 3 delusions around the aggregates. These delusions are the notions that the 5 aggregates are permanent, a source of true happiness and a self. The wisdom needed to break the spell of these delusions is the insight into the five aggregates as impermanent, anicca, suffering, dukkha, and non-self, anatta. This is called the direct knowledge of the three characteristics of existence, tilakkhana.
Okay, thanks, Sister Shami. So here Bhikkhu Bodhi mentioned all our defilements stem from one thing, which is ignorance, which lies at the bottom of all suffering and bondage. With ignorance, our net of three delusions, it weaves around the aggregates. What are these delusions? The notions that the five aggregates are permanent, a source of true happiness, and a self. And the wisdom needed to break the spell is precisely the opposite. And the insight of impermanent, suffering, and non-self. Let me highlight one by one. So then suffering and non-self, anatta. Okay, let me separate these two. Permanent, source of true happiness, and the self. And this three is the direct knowledge. It's called the direct knowledge of the three characteristics of existence. Tilakkhana. Okay, I think this is a good time to stop. Any questions or comments? So if we have the delusions of permanent, source of true happiness and self, and then the insight is directly the opposite, and we don't have this insight yet, by definition, that's why we all are still suffering. Any questions so far on the five aggregates? We will explore again in the much greater details in the paragraphs to come. Okay, if no comments, would Sister Shomi like to do the dedication?
愿消三障诸烦恼，愿得智慧真明了，普愿罪障悉消除，世世常行菩萨道。
Thanks, Sister Shomi. Till we meet again, may we be guided by the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have an insightful Wednesday ahead. Thanks, everyone.